Right, sheet 3. Now, sheet 3, I have a vision in my mind. We'll see how much we keep to that vision. But basically, if I run through on paper with you, the other two sheets are 28 across by 37 long, okay? Sheet 3, I would very much like to have a minimum of 1 zip in here, perhaps 2. Now, I'm going to keep to the 28 across, definitely. But as for the length, I'm going to see how it evolves, because there's going to be some cloth going on here, and some embroidery, some pin pricking, some stitching on paper, possibly some doodling on paper, and zips. So it could well be that even though the width is maintained between these two, the length of sheet 3 is extended. I don't know. I'm going to see how it goes. So the first thing I'm going to do, I need to sort the fabric bits out first. Now this is some fabric that I doodled on in a different class. It's not colour fast, it's just done with my fine liners, and I've tested it and it does wash away if it gets wet. So I wouldn't use this in embroidery per se, a piece of cloth that was going to stay as a piece of cloth, because if I damp stretched it, they would just wash out, everything would just disappear. But for paper, inserted into paper, it's perfect. So now perhaps you could start doodling on some fabric. Now this is like a crisp cotton, like it's got a finish on it of some kind. Perhaps it's starched, I don't know, but it's unwashed, so it has like a crispness to it, as does this. Okay, so if you're going to doodle onto your fabric, I would recommend that you doodled onto something that has a nice crisp feel to it, like it's got a finish on it. I don't know any other way of putting that really. And then basically, if I take through my designs from what I've been doing, literally just pretend it's a piece of paper. Although on this one, look, it's bleeding a little bit, the pen. So you'll have to perhaps test your different pens. I mean, I think maybe a biro would work. Just give me a second and I'll get a biro. A ballpoint pen. Yeah, that works perfectly actually. That works really well. So just play with fabric and put your own designs onto scraps of fabric in just one pen or something. Some dots going on like that, and it doesn't take long to build it up, and it's a lovely reference to have, and do more than you need perhaps, and then you've always got a stock of it. And it would also be a reminder in the future, if you were thinking, I really need some fabric that's got X, Y or Z on it, I don't have time to buy any, can't afford to buy any, can't find it in the right colour, whatever reason, then you could just doodle it yourself like that. That didn't take me 2 minutes, did it? So, but I'm going to work with this. I'm going to have some plain white. I'm going to use this plain white, and I'm going to use a bit of this. And with this one, I've already covered some hexagons, just like a patchwork process, because these are going to come on an edge of this next piece. Okay, so it's not a patchwork class, but if there is somebody out there who doesn't know how to cover hexagons, drop me a line and I can send you a link, because it is pretty easy. You just cut out your paper hexagon, and you can print hexagons on the internet and print them onto card, cut them out, and your fabric that goes over the hexagon should be at least 1/4 of an inch bigger than the card all the way around, and then you just put your fabric over your hexagons like this. And I will show you, we will get to a point where I'll show you how to join these. And then you need to take the cards out obviously at some point, so don't do that. If you know what you're doing with hexagons, which I'm sure you all do actually, I'm just wondering if I've got 28 inches worth here. That's why I'm doing this, 28 centimetres, sorry. When you're applying these to paper, I'm not saying you can't do it, but be careful if you start without me, because it can be quite tricky. and I have a method of doing this. Because you're working on paper with holes and stuff visible, just, you know, bear that in mind, be very careful. Have I got 28 centimetres? No, I haven't, so I need to do a couple more of those myself, so I'll have to do them this evening or something. Okay, so that's going to go to one side because I want to make more hexagons with that. Now, for the purposes of the sheet, now I'm going to create an edge of bullion knots. So for this, I'm using plain white and I'm using fine fabric. I'm just going to finger press it, that's all, nothing else. I'm going to mark it at 28 centimetres. I haven't got a pencil with me. Just let me get up and get something to mark that with. I need, because the bullion knots, I only want, yeah, 28 centimetres run of bullion knots. So I'm going to give myself a bit of an edge here. So if I mark it there on 0 and there on 28, okay. And get my hoop. And I don't have to do anything else with that, and I'll tell you why in a second. If I put that in there, I'm going to actually do loops. So if you've not done bullion loops before, you're going to learn how to do them now. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this. I'll give you a demonstration as far as I can of how I feel this is going to develop for me on my sheet. Okay, make sure that's tight and check that my first mark is there, which it is. So I need to just pull it this way to tighten it a little bit. Okay, right, so what I'm thinking, what I envisage is, say this is my top section and it's 28 across here. Okay, so this is the width, not the drop. The drop is down here. So what my plan is to stitch that with the bullion loops and apply it to that edge, and then have another piece of paper underneath that, and then perhaps have a zip in here. Okay, we'll have the zip in there, then have another piece of paper, perhaps really long, with a hexagon edge down here. Okay, that's what I'm thinking, but that's not to say I might decide to put a zip in here as well. I literally haven't decided that bit yet, but I have decided on zips definitely, bullion loops and hexagons definitely, all again in blue and white in a similar theme to my other sheets. But remember, again, you're not compelled to do that. You can use any pattern you want. You can change your patterns if you wish. Right, so I've got this and I have to work like this with the edge free within the hoop, because I find it very difficult to do bullion knots without a hoop, number one. And number two, they're on the edge, they're not on the surface, they're actually going to be on the edge. So I'm going to put a knot in this, probably tie it about 3 times. Now I actually want to work, I may have to move this along the hoop, but no, I don't really, it doesn't matter. I want to work this way so that they drop down that way. Okay, if I was to start here and do them this way, they'd drop down this way, but I want them to drop down that way. So I'm going to take my knot up through that fold there and bring my needle out through the top of the fold so that my knot's concealed in that fold. So then what I do, I go down, so I've come up, we'll say this is A. Want me to pull in a little bit? Right, go down a B, which is like a millimetre away, like, hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Like a 1/10 of an inch, if that, a minuscule amount away from there. Okay, leave my needle in, don't pull it out, Make sure you've got a lot of enough thread on your needle, and I'm going to wrap around this needle 35 times anti-clockwise, and I'm going to count in my head, so I'm going to go quiet for a sec, okay? Now, it doesn't matter if you miss one, you know, or it really doesn't matter, or put one extra on, it doesn't matter. The important thing, for those of you who've never done this before, is to make sure they don't cross over, the wraps don't cross over, that they all lay flat. And you push them down the needle, hold them tight, at the same time pull your needle through. Pull your needle through, right the way through. Push them down the thread, and take your thread back through where you came up, and that gives you a loop there, hanging from there, that will now form an edge of a piece of paper, okay? So I've come up right next to that one, because I want them all close together. Got a loose thread there from where I know not. And again, a minuscule amount away, leave my needle in, push it through, and again 35 again. I'm pushing them down all the time as well. Right, and pull my needle through again. And that's 2 bullion loops. Now my thread there, it's quite fiddly at times. Your thread can get wrapped around the wrong way. Just make sure they're separated, both sides of the loop. Pull it tight and go back down again. Now how would I finish this off? So I've got 2 there. Okay, they're like little droplets, they're lovely. If I was going to fasten this off, I'll fasten it off to demonstrate. I'll do that to make a knot like that. Okay. And then I'll put my thread, my needle, in between this fold, in the fold. I might have to take it out the hoop to do that actually. It's tight. Ugh. Tight, tight. And put my needle down so that my trailing thread is within that fold. Okay. And then cut it off quite short. Now, so let's put it back in, because I need to speak to you about something else. So let's put it back in now. So what I'm going to do, doesn't matter if they twist actually, they look nicer if they twist. Finish all the way up to here, to where my blue mark is on the back, okay. Then I will take it out of my hoop and move my hoop along to do the next bit, okay. Now you're going to find that your hoop at times might squash a couple of your bullion knots. Don't worry about that. I've done so many bullion knots I've lost count, and it's never ever damaged my bullion knots before. Don't worry about it. Do that, take it out the hoop again, move it along, do the next bit. Now normally if this was for embroidery, or if it was for paperwork and it was a solid piece of embroidery in terms of surface embroidery, I would damp stretch this. Because it's for an edge, I'm not going to do that, and particularly because these knots are on the front, they're on the edge, okay. So it's possible to iron this without taking your iron anywhere near the stitching, because all that's going to be on here in terms of stitching is bullion knots at the edge dropping off. So I can iron that up there to get that, the creases out of that, and to get that ready for the edge, okay. So that's what you need to do in terms of embroidery if you want to copy me exactly. So you need to make your hexagons, doodle on some cloth, make your hexagons and do your edge of bullion knots. If you don't want to do bullion knots, don't do bullion knots, do French knots, do whatever, but just make yourself a really nice edge. You could even just do buttonhole lace on an edge and use that. Now I'm just going to stand up because I want to get that other piece. And if you imagine, if you get to a point where you've got this whole thing embroidered with a stream of bullion knots, again, take it forward and look at it in conjunction with the work you've already done. See how it affects the work you've already done. You could add a bullion edge on fabric to this, because when I show you how I'm going to get this in my paperwork, you could be able to do it to that. So again, see everything together as a store, as a library of information on making design sheets and mixing and matching these processes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn off and get some paper to cut for this piece, okay? And I'll cut the paper. I'm just going to get my acrylic paper and cut it 28 across, not by 37, because I'm not going to worry about the 37. I'm going to cut myself a small piece, 28 across, and when I decide on the depth, I'll tell you when I turn the camera back on. Right, I'm back. So I've got 28 width that way, okay, and only 10 centimetres drop. And what's going to happen is, this row of bullion knots, when it's done, is going to hang below here and it's going to come from underneath, right? Now, a little bit of a tip for you, if you want to pinprick the surface or embellish the surface, do it before you come to add the fabric, okay? So embellishing the surface, especially at the edge, should come before you apply your fabric, you attach your fabric. So what I'm probably going to do, I quite like to just have a rough edge, an organic edge of holes, okay, just like a random pattern going along the edge, like that, sir. Okay, you probably can't see it very well, and these will lay below that, but that will help. Having these holes already set will help with attaching this, because you'll already have your holes at the back, and that is a time when you might have to poke through from the back through your paper. But actually, I'll tell you when we come to attach the fabric, I'll tell you then, because I don't want to tell you now. It'll be better leaving it for then. So then what I need to do is make a decision about what's going to go on this surface. Now, there's been a lot of lines going on with my work, like linear patterning, hasn't there? So I'd quite like on here to have something more organic. So I'm going to try and do a bullion knot on here, a bullion loop. So just let me rethread my needle. I can't think that I've done a bullion loop on paper before, but in theory it shouldn't be too difficult. But what I think I'll do is create some holes first. So if I do like a circle of holes, then my holes will be set for stitching the loop, and it will also have texture in the area surrounding the loop, won't it? So, there's my thread. So I'll just thread my needle. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be doable, but we'll see. But I'm aiming on this one for more stitching than anything else. Right, so I've put a knot in my needle and I'm going to go through to the back, and then I'm going to go down through one of these, and you've kind of got to bend it because you've got to come back up through where you went down and not take your needle out. So be careful of that, because that's where bending of your paper could occur. Do the wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, no, it's come out. I'm going to still see if I can do it. Right, it came out. There's 35 on there, and it might still work actually. Oh no, it's come right through. Oh, what's happened is the paper's perforated. I must have had those holes too close together. But I'm not going to let it beat me. I'm going to do it again. I'll put another knot in my thread. So don't put your holes too close together, because there's a chance you'll pull the whole thing out. So I'll put a knot in my thread again. Right, I can come up through that big massive hole. No, my knot's going to come through, so I can't do that. So I'll come up away from that. I'll go back down through that one, because it's quite big, and up, and I'll do my wraps again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Somebody's coming to the door. Won't be a minute. Like that. 9, that was, wasn't it? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's come out again. I'm struggling here, aren't I? So, I'm going to have a rethink. So what I'm going to do, I've still got a knot in my thread. This knot isn't lost, don't worry. Make another hole away from that hole. Come up there with my knot. And then go down there and down over this hole. And give myself a firmer base for this stitching. So I'm literally just darning this paper. And in fact, it might make a better base for a bullion knot. Because it's going to be like cloth, isn't it? Just using the holes that are already there and crossing over the top of this. Because I'm desperate to have bullion loops on the surface of this. So if this is what it takes, it doesn't matter to me. Just build it up. It's going to be quite padded with like big down. I came up the same hole there. It's going to be quite padded with like big darning stitches, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So perhaps the first thing to do is to make your holes in a circle like I did initially, and then do this anyway. So it'll give you a much firmer base for adding a bullion knot. Because then maybe I'm going to just make a hole there, because I'm not convinced that other one will just become part of the bigger one. Go back up through that one and come down there. So all I've got now on there is like a padded area of stitching, which is fine. So I'll come up there. And if I go, not through the paper, but through this pile of thread, and bring my needle out. So the pile of thread is supporting this now, not the paper. So we're problem solving together here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Right, pull that through. Push them down the needle and go back down through, and now I have a lovely loop on the surface of there. But what I've also got is a padded area of darning stitching. I'm going to fasten that off but leave my thread attached and change my needle, because what I'm going to do now, get a smaller needle but a sharp needle, and I'm going to do some French knots around there. So if I come up here, look at the back where you've got holes again. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to go back down through that hole because it's quite a big hole. Take that down through there, French knot there. Go to the back again. It's quite a large hole, that first one that I'm using. So I'll come up again, 1, 2, 3, and go down just to the side of it, through the base of the bullion knot that time. That's another French knot. I've got a hole at the back that's visible. Come up there, 1, 2, 3, go down. Now it's looped over my bullion knot, so I have to get that off there. Pull that down, then I've got another one there just to the side of it. Come up there and do a French knot in there. This is a lovely textured piece, and even though it's born from a bit of a mistake, it doesn't matter because it's just worked out perfectly. So you know, a lot of problems, there are solutions. So there, so now I've got on that page a bullion loop and some French knots. Fasten that off. There. It's lovely, it's really lovely. So I'm going to do that randomly all over here along with this organically pricked edge. Finish these loops and then come back to attach that, and that'll be the first part of this third sheet. But what I'll do before I turn off is I'll show you now how I'm going to approach these now after that learning curve when I just did that first one. So I'm going to put some more thread in the needle. I've got a sharp needle, not a bullion needle yet, a sharp needle and some thread. So I'll thread this. Okay, and I'll put a knot in it first. And then I'm literally just going to prick from the front now. So what I'm going to do is maybe close together about 5 holes, but almost in a circle. Okay, there. Come up from the back and just build up a surface here of thread that will anchor bullion knot when I come to make the next bullion knot. So literally just crisscrossing, making it like a tiny little mound of thread. But a substantial one, you know what I mean? Do it less, more than less. If you're in doubt, do another one. Do you know what I mean? So that you have got a substantial, solid thread area here that's going to anchor that bullion knot without your paper perforating like just happened to me. So I mean, I haven't been counting, you might have been counting how many times I've done this, but I think one more like that. Right, bring it to the front again and then put my bullion needle on and do that bullion again with that firm base of thread that's going to anchor that bullion knot. I'm just looking in my case here for my bullion knot, my bullion needle, sorry, not my bullion knot. I don't know what I've done with it. I think that's a bead needle. Where is it, I wonder? Oh, there it is. Right, I do have more than one, but I'm just going to snip this to give me a cleaner edge for threading. So So we'll do that again, and hopefully it's going to be seamless now. Fingers crossed. So I've come up there, go down the other side and up. Leave my needle through. It's not gone through the paper, it's gone through the base of all those threads. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Push that through, pull it through, sorry. Push them down. There. I mean, how seamless was that? And through to the back. There. And then again, come back through the holes that are visible here at the back and add French knots to finish this little area. So I'm going to do these, excuse me, all over this surface. And then I might intersperse with pin pricks. So when I come back, I'll be attaching the bullion edge. I'll be explaining to you how I've progressed this. Now, it's about personal choice, this next thing. I mean, I've demonstrated how you can get bullion knots on here and French knots on here, how to do the edge, but anything else you want to put on this surface in terms of embellishment, it's entirely up to you. I don't think I'll be drawing on here, although I don't know. I mean, I don't know what blue and white might look like actually. I did a bit of blue doodling on here. But for now, I'm happy with just this. Might not even pinprick. You want to put pinpricking on, do it. You want to draw on it, do it. Whatever you put on here is entirely up to you. You might be working with some kind of pattern that would live well with a white bullion knot and some coloured French knots. You know, or a coloured bullion knot and different coloured French knots. Push this forward in your own way, aesthetically pleasing to you, okay? So you've got loads to be going on with. I'm coming back on Wednesday next week. So yeah, and like I say, I'll be progressing this. So I really hope you enjoy that. And I am actually happy that I had that little accident. I say this, if you do Simply Stitch 5, you know me already. If you've never done a class with me before, ask anybody. I leave the mistakes in and then we all learn from them. And it's not, in reality, it's not a mistake. It's an error that was resolved. So it's like sampling and problem solving, because I was determined to have bullion loops on here and I've got them. And the fact that I didn't do that one correctly, or I was wrong in my assumption of how that would work, doesn't matter, because that's been resolved, okay? And I don't believe in hiding things like that. I believe if I do that, then we all need to benefit from it, and then we all learn from that. Okay, so I hope you're loving this class. I really hope you are. I love what's happening in Flickr. I love that some of you are, well, all of you are actually, making it your own work. You may be taking hints from me, and like perhaps plans for different sheets laid on top of each other from me. But they're all so unique and individual. I love it, it's amazing. So you're all absolutely fantastic. So have a really wonderful weekend. I'm going to be making bullion loops all weekend, it looks like, doesn't it? Never mind, could be worse. Can think of worse things to do.